In this video, I'm going to show you 5 custom presets that I have on my Panasonic G9 and why I use every single one. Good morning, good evening, and good night, guys. My name is Dangyou. In this channel, we talk about camera tricks and tips and how to start your media channel from scratch. So if you're interested in that, consider subscribing. Let's jump into the rest of this video. The Panasonic G9, guys, kind of just some ground rules that are kind of base settings for everything. I shoot mostly and everything in natural. Here on the screen, you'll see all my custom presets for everything, including the contrast, saturation, noise reduction, sharpness. So that's all on the screen right now, just showing you guys what I shoot. If you're interested in the LUTs that I use, they are in the description and on my website as well. They're totally free. There's 4 free LUTs. I put them at 30%, and I have a color grading video on how I actually use my LUTs. That second rule is going to be double your FPS based off your shutter. So for example, 24 frames a second is 1/50th of shutter, 60 frames a second is 1/20th of a shutter, but I think we should do this in a more interesting location. Oh yeah, don't mind the floor. Okay, there's like a lot of people. What? You don't want to film at the park? I do not. I hate talking in front of a camera in front of a lot of people. Dude, just film at the park. Come on, it's not that hard. Hey, I really don't. Can we have the other guy? Fine, I'll put the other guy talk. The other guy on. Thank you. You're welcome. Really? You couldn't just talk in public? I know there's a lot of people around, but really? My first one is on C1 is my 4K 24 frames a second at 422 10-bit. This is just when I do talking bits like this, and this is how the natural eye sees for the most part. C2 is at my 4K 60 frames a second. It only shoots in 8-bit at 420, so don't get as much room for color grading, but it still gets really great slow motion shots if you're into that. Now to the third one. The C3 has 3 options in itself. That's why there's 5 settings. That first one, C3-1, is my super slow motion. So I'm at 1080, 30 frames a second, variable frame rate for 120 frames a second. If that sounds a little confusing to you and you don't quite understand, basically this camera allows you to have a variable frame rate and slow down the footage based off your frame rate. So if you go to 1080, 30 frames and using variable frame rate, you're able to shoot a lot slower of a percentage, so you can go all the way to 180 frames in a variable frame rate. Downside to when you have this setting turned on the camera is that you have to be manually focused the entire time. You'll probably be out of focus a good amount of the time. Alright, to my C3-2, the second option on the third dial, that is actually 4K 30 frames a second. It's kind of something that's a little bit different. It's not 24 where it looks super natural like this, but you're able to slow it down by 5%, and it creates this little like in between slow motion that's kind of really overused in YouTube and most videos overall, and just a natural different type of look where it's not too slow but it's not too fast, and it's just a nice little in between. Again, there will be a full video on that, so if you want to see that video in the future, definitely hit subscribe. And then my last preset is my... Alright, well, let me pause myself there. So originally I stated that my C3-3 setting is my photography setting. But in between me editing and me filming this part right here, I ended up actually kind of changing that setting completely. Is breaking the FPS for my shutter rule that I said earlier in this video. I am actually have that 4K 24 frames a second, but the way I break my rule from earlier is that I do 1/100th of a shutter at 100 frames a second. I know it's darker, but then you go... It creates this fast-paced motion between the camera and the person fighting, so it's really good for action shots. I'm gonna let myself finish talking about photography settings so you can just know what my photography settings are just for my manual photography. For this one, for these settings, I have it to 4/3 just because that is a micro 4/3, so you're gonna use the entire sensor. Personally, I like to have constant preview on. I just have this setting turned on. It's in the menu system. It's called constant preview on this camera. You turn that on, you're able to see a constant preview similar to when you're filming videos. It's just a really nice feature to have. Anyways, I guess that's where today's video is going to be coming to an end. If you did enjoy this video, thank you so much. Maybe hit a like, put a comment on future videos you want to see. I know some people haven't pinned those comments, and I'm going to get to those videos very, very soon. So thank you guys so much for sticking around, subscribing, everyone who has been. I appreciate all of y'all. And until next week, peace. Woo! Let's go.